I'm a fool. I spent years studying the workings of the heart. Yet it seems I still haven't learned a thing. The process of encoding hearts is incalculable. The inhabitants of my twilight town were data created from real hearts. I was convinced that they would think and behave the way I had envisioned, but I couldn't have been more wrong. A heart is so much more than any system. I saw it when Roxas and Kyrie crossed paths. I knew, but I was too stubborn to accept it. It's always the same. I try to wrap my mind around things my heart already knows, only to fail. I had so many plans in store, but once Sora was an acting force, they fell apart. All my research amounted to nothing compared with that one boy's heart. Have your laugh. I deserve as much for failing to see you for the fool you are. Xehanort, foolish apprentice of a foolish man. My disregard brought chaos to more worlds than one. But what were you seeking? You have surpassed nothing. Only proved how little we both know. We may profess to know the heart, but its essence is beyond our reach. We're both ignorant, as oblivious as when we began. I'm afraid that any world you try to create, any world of yours, would be an empire of ignorance. I had so many plans in store, but once Sora was an acting force, they fell apart. All my research amounted to nothing compared with that one boy's heart.
Perhaps I wanted to atone for events of the past, even if no apology can undo the harm I have wrought. I felt that I ought to leave at least something behind. A clue, I hope, to finding yourselves or your lost friends in your hour of need. The heart has always been quick to grow. Each exposure to light, to the natural world, to other people, shapes this most malleable part inside of us. Sora was the only one able to return to his human form without destroying his nobody. That is a statement to the love in his heart for other people and the bonds that tie them together. Perhaps he has the power to bring back the hearts and existences of those connected to him, to recreate people we thought were lost to us forever. He has touched countless hearts, and he has saved them. And some of those hearts have never left him, whether they fell into darkness or were trapped there, whether they sleep in the darkness of Sora's heart, or were welcomed into its warmth. They can be saved.
I had so many plans in store, but once Sora was an acting force, they fell apart. All my research amounted to nothing compared with that one boy's heart. So many plans in store, but once Sora was an acting force, they fell apart. All my research amounted to nothing compared with that one boy's heart.
Our most precious treasures, even an empty puppet, the trees of the forest, and the petals on the wind. There are hearts around us everywhere we look. And it does not take superhuman powers to see them. Surely we remember as children the way our hearts made everything seem so shiny and perfect. Sora has a heart like that, uncorrupted, willing to see the good before the bad. When he sees the heart in something, it then becomes real. When a connection seems broken, he may have the power to mend it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Landy Lodge, where today we've got an exciting Kingdom Hearts themed episode for you today with one of my favorite guests who always brings the heat into these podcasts. But before we can continue, let's first give a shout out and a lot of love to the sages of the lodge, the beautiful names you see on your screen. They are either YouTube channel members, longtime Twitch subscribers, or they donate directly. But like I always say, every episode ad nauseum, all I ask is that you're here to hang out, here to chill. Whether you're in the chat, whether you're just lurking, listening to just audio, whatever it is, I'm happy you're here in whatever capacity you are. Let's give some love and a shout out to the early birds. I see we got 7 Hearts, 884, Vitrin, DJ Ghoul, J-Lo Beans, G, Matt Sauer, Celia, and over on the Twitch side of things, Wildcat Diana. Wow. Today's going to be fun. Before I introduce today's guest, Keycast, allow me to first let you guys know what you're in for. While today is titled a theory dive and theory sort of expansion between him and I, we are going to start this episode with a little bit of a gameplay discussion. Now, I didn't want to really advertise this episode to have anything too gameplay involved, just because neither myself nor him have actually had our hands on the actual game itself. Therefore, it would all just be second-handed. So, that said, we do have a lot to discuss. Keycast has noticed a few things about the gameplay that not everybody is talking about, so I'm excited to hear him get into that. So, without further ado, allow me to introduce today's guest, none other than Keycast himself, returning to the lodge. Dude, what is going on? It is good to have you back.
Hey everyone, and it's a pleasure to be back. It's always fun to be on these podcasts with you.
Dude, absolutely. I think the last one we did was a sort of Kingdom Hearts 1 versus Kingdom Hearts 2 debate sort of thing, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a little different than what we usually do. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more of our MO, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I let the audience know, by the way, that before we really get into the theories of it all and stuff like that, that we wanted to have like sort of a brief gameplay discussion. I know there's a number of things that you have noticed, changes that they've made to the gameplay between beta tests. So go ahead. Why don't you just take the reins on that?
Okay, for starters, one of the first things I noticed is there's now a graphical option. So now you can adjust the graphic settings of the game that would best optimize your phone settings, so that way your phone doesn't overheat, depending on the type of phone you have.
Which is good, because we've heard it in the first beta test that this game was absolutely frying people's phones. So this is a relief to people who may not have maybe the most up-to-date Android model or most up-to-date iPhone model. It seems like a lot of that is to make it compatible with people who have older models.
Exactly. And another one we got was the party function. They went a little more in-depth with that now. Now this is entirely separate from doing raids with your friends. So now if you have a friend who's local or nearby who has the game also, they can send you, I don't know how it works, but basically they can connect their game with yours, and their character will appear in your game as an NPC. So now anytime you go around the astral plane doing missions, fighting Heartless, your friend's character will be beside you, assisting you throughout these missions.
And just wanted to be clear, so you have to be within a certain proximity of your friend to do that, correct?
As of right now, yes. We don't know how far away, we don't know how far away you can be from them until it disconnects. But I'm pretty sure I heard that you could actually be quite a distance.
Interesting. And that'd be cool too if they could expand that, because obviously this wasn't going to work in like a typical MMO fashion where everybody's on a server and you're going to see every single person that's logged onto that server whenever you boot the game up. It seems like it's a little bit more localized and allows you to kind of decorate the overworld with your friends if you're willing to put in the effort. Is that understanding it correctly?
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. I'd like to... Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's pretty cool too, because now I could have like maybe my two best friends characters just with me whenever I go out and do missions. Even if they're hard missions, their NPCs will be helping me out.
Oh, so it even goes a step further where essentially you can almost recruit your friends' avatars to be the NPCs that go on missions with you.
That's essentially what it is. So it's like, okay, you
Oh,
put your characters out in the astral plane, and I don't know how the connection works. Maybe you get a friend code from your friend, and whatever their character currently has equipped will appear in your game in the astral world with your character. And let's say I'm doing a mission where I'm fighting a heartless, or I'm trying to get a character piece in that battle. Your friend's character will be assisting you in that fight. They'll start fighting on their own.
I love that. I love you're it's almost like you're picking your Donald and Goofy. And that's great
Exactly.
because you could yell at your friends for screwing up and not healing you, and they're not actually there. Their feelings can't get hurt.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Honestly, no, I really love that. I think that's a cool feature. It would be cool if it could be if it expands to national, because that's going to be tough to pull off internationally, especially. But
Hmm.
if it could be pulled off at like a national level or even a coastal level, that's something that could be really cool to because immersion is important, right? And that's something that a lot of mobile games have lacked is a certain
Hmm.
level of immersion that console games are able to achieve. But if you could pull that off and have the range be wide enough, I think that could. I think that's something that people will really come to value.
I agree. And right now, as of right now, the only thing that's doing that is the raid mode. And the raid mode lets you play with a total, I think, of 6 players, and it's in real time. It's not NPCs or anything like that. It's all real time, fighting giant heartless boss or whatever future bosses they put out there. The only thing though is to do raids, everyone must have a raid ticket. So if you do a raid, you need to use a raid ticket. If you invite your friends to one of your raids, they need to also have a raid ticket.
Okay, okay. How do you get a raid ticket? I'm pretty sure I
Raid
know the answer
tickets,
to that, but go ahead.
raid tickets will be done through, I'm assuming, rewards throughout the game. Maybe like, because the game's also going to have. This is another thing I forgot to mention. They're going to have like a battle pass in a sense.
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, everyone gets the main pass, which is like, everyone could get all the rewards, but then there's going to be like a how do I explain? Like a gold pass where you're most likely gonna have to spend microtransaction money so you can have access to it, and whatever rewards you get you'll also get the gold pass rewards, and they'll probably give you a little extra raid tickets or a little extra AP.
Okay, so I want to caveat us or interrupt us a little bit here because you mentioned that dreadful word microtransactions. And look, I'm very excited about a lot of what we have to discuss today, but I want to get the least exciting thing out of the way. Um, in the pre-roll, you seem to have nailed down how they're probably going to structure some of these microtransactions. Do you maybe want to can we rip that band-aid off?
Oh, okay. Yes, with the character pieces. So each character piece that you can collect a whole bunch of character pieces on your own in the astral plane, which is cool. And usually the missions for collecting these character pieces require you to fight another Keyblade wielder NPC, which also, in my opinion, is awesome because that fits the
Hmm.
narrative when they said that Keyblade wielders from different societies are fighting each other to claim these character pieces. So when you go in the astral plane and you do a mission to get a character
Hmm.
piece you want, you will be fighting an NPC Keyblade wielder from another society.
Oh, that
Um,
is okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah, and then the microtransaction side, when you get a character piece, you can level it up with certain materials, but there will be a point where if you want to get it to an even higher or max level, you will need more of the same character piece. And I think they're gonna probably try to pull one on us where we have to spend real money and do draws and hope we get that same character piece again and again and again till we get the right amount.
So let me get this straight. So my favorite character is Riku. So if I have a Riku character piece, I of course am going to want to level that piece up so it could be one of my strongest utilities in this game. However, the chances of leveling that up by the luck of the draw alone are, let's say, microscopic, not good, let's just go with that. And it appears as though if somebody wants to specifically level up certain character pieces, it's going to incentivize you to continuously spend, like you're saying, real world money to get the in-game currency to enter into a roulette to level those trophies up. Because like you said, in order to level those trophies up, you have to obtain that same trophy. So leveling up the very trophy you want by luck of the draw alone is, the odds are against you. So somebody like me is going to be susceptible to trying to target leveling up my Riku piece. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, but I think that's more going to fall along the lines of character pieces that are only available through special draws. Because
Like
I
special
don't think
events.
yes, I don't think every single character piece in this game is going to be accessible through the astral plane alone. Maybe your most common ones will be, but as the game continues and more newer ones come out that are only accessible through draws, that's where they're going to get you.
Interesting. So you're telling me it's the Halloween Riku and the Christmas Riku. That's how they're gonna.
Yes.
I want Riku in a Santa
Yes.
hat, but I can only get him between December 1st and January 15th. So I gotta ring it up now. I get it.
Yes.
Oh God. Ever Crisis does something pretty similar. But I will say, just I guess to compare the two, Ever Crisis seemed pretty friendly about getting what you wanted from events. Right? They didn't make it so that you could choose exactly what you drew, but they made it so it wasn't too impossible. So that if you didn't want to spend any money on the game, it would just require you to play the game a lot. So if you wanted a certain like special event Barrett or special event Yuffie, in my opinion, in playing the game, they didn't stack the odds too hard against you to draw it. So I can only hope they'll be equally as generous with Missing Link, but I wouldn't advise anybody count on it.
Also, to answer this person's question here on the chat, so how you say that, Celia? I hope I said that right.
Saliha,
They were mentioning, yeah, with the raids, you can do random raids without using a ticket, but you're not going to be able to play with your friend. You'll be playing with strangers. If you want to play specifically with your friends, I think you need to actually invite. They have to have raid tickets, and you need to have your own.
And you know, this is smart because if you just let everybody buddy up per se, it's going to make people who don't have any friends that play the game a little harder to find a match. So what you might end up seeing is that they'll incentivize you, and FF14 does some stuff like this too. And I know there's going to be a lot of overlap between the two, but that's another conversation for another day. That said, I can imagine the raid tickets that you want to play with your friends can be achieved by doing random, like hitting random and doing the random raid. So it's like, okay, you did a couple random raids today. Here's your ticket to go play with your friends. I could see them maybe structuring it like that. Interesting. Cool.
And then we have.
Keep going.
I think the biggest thing that we have that a lot of people are going to be having, like spending their most time on in the astral plane, is the growth log. Now that is going to be, that's your bread and butter. That's going to be everything you need to level up your character's stats when it comes to strength, magic, speed, all that jazz. But what's interesting about it is you're going to get multiple growth logs. You're going to get, maybe when the game comes out, we'll have 2, maybe we'll have 3. But each log has a set of missions that it requires you to do, and when you complete them, you'll get that stat boost. But you can only equip one growth log at a time. So, and each growth log has their own different stat changes. So there's probably going to be down the road missions that are going to be tough, where you have to actually figure out which growth log will best suit you for certain missions. It also along the lines of with your medals.
Interesting. Kind of bringing it back to Union Cross in that way.
It's like a style change. Think of it as a style change kind of thing.
I see. Very interesting. It's, you know, I was saying this to you a little bit in the pre-roll. It definitely has a lot more depth than I was anticipating, which is a good thing. But that does mean it sounds like there's going to be a bit of a learning curve for people who maybe are unfamiliar with this style of game, or maybe even mobile games in general.
I agree.
Yeah, because I know for me, Ever Crisis was a bit of an adjustment. because I played Union Cross for a while. I wouldn't say they're exactly the same. There's definitely overlap. So Square seems to be developing a formula for mobile games. But yeah, you discussed a little bit in the pre-roll too that, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but you noticed some discrepancies between the two beta tests and some other things that have changed. You mentioned one thing when we first got started, but I could have sworn you brought something else up in the pre-roll.
I was it the character pieces, the shiny and the regular ones?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, so there'll be regular character pieces that you could find, and then there's going to be the rare shiny versions. In the first beta, from what we learned, they were just for aesthetic-wise. They were just shiny character pieces, almost like shiny Pokemon. But now they made it so when you find these shiny character pieces and equip them, you'll be using less MP when you use them in battle.
Interesting. So it becomes a resourcefulness thing. Having the
Yes,
shinies essentially makes you more resourceful. You're not expending as much when you're... There we go. A little bit of a shiny Pokemon vibe we got going on. I dig
And that's
it.
pretty much it. And that's pretty much it for the new gameplay. Everything else was more along the lines of we got in the world of Scala. When you explore, we saw the different types of Moogles they added: the treasure chest, the weather Moogle, I think it was the basic training Moogle to get you started, give you like basic missions to get a feel for the game, and then everything else was just lore.
Okay. Well, I'm excited, I guess, before we hop off the gameplay for at least a little bit. I will say the more I'm seeing of the game, the more excited I am. This looks, as someone who enjoyed Ever Crisis, this looks better than Ever Crisis.
I agree.
This generally looks like it could be, just so long as the gacha stuff isn't too predatory, right? This generally could be one of the best subtitle games Kingdom Hearts can have in its catalog.
I would say so, yeah. This time and age, yeah. Because Union Cross, when it came to the microtransactions, they were heavy on that.
Yeah. And there are ways that I understand that a game like this, it's going to be free, right? And nothing in this world is free. They're going to want their money, and your data is not going to be the only thing they want. They're going to want you to... Maybe I'm just weird, but I almost feel like the best way to do it is to sell people skins, right? Because skins is not pay to win. Skins is not having access to more of the actual game itself. But it's like, if you want to spend $5 to buy like a Chocobo outfit and a Moogle outfit kit for your character, I think that kind of stuff's completely fair, personally. I don't think you should withhold like good items and stuff, because obviously you're going to unlock things your character and custom avatar can wear. So I don't want all of that behind like paywall stuff, but like seasonal things, again, like Christmas hats for your character and stuff like that, these sort of seasonal promotional things, I kind of feel like that's one of the best ways to do it, because I feel like when I spend money on that kind of stuff, it doesn't feel like I got preyed upon, because it's like, I don't need this Christmas hat to play the game. It doesn't really add anything to the game. I just think it's funny to see the character in a Christmas hat. I don't know. What are your personal feelings on that kind of stuff?
I mean, I'm okay with that. That's one of the things I also like about this, is that they're going really heavy with the outfits and the costumes. And Kingdom Puns actually brought up that the clothes increase your stat boost.
Yes,
now,
Kingdom Pun just threw that in the chat. That just made me rethink a little bit. But keep going.
Now that's a little problem I have. I'm not a fan of games where clothes boost your stats, because then it kind of requires you to wear outfits you don't like.
Can I pause
you?
Go ahead. Actually, you threw the button. You got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, but if it's okay for me to wear an outfit, if I can somehow equip certain games have done this in the past, which I like. You can equip the outfit, but you can change the style into a different outfit you like while keeping the stats.
Correct. So I'm inevitably, guys, I'm going to bring it up whenever Missing Link comes up. But in FF14, they have something called Glamour Prisms, and you can purchase these, collect these via side quests and stuff. And essentially, if anybody here has watched me play FF14, the clothes my character is wearing is not the armor that's actually equipped. So what they allow you to do is you equip your best armor, but you can use a glamour prism to essentially project your preferred armor piece onto that piece of armor. So I might have like a really slick looking piece of armor that looks cool, but it's weaker than armor X. The game allows you to put armor X on and use this item to sort of project your preferred armor piece onto it. And I'm with you where it's like, that's actually a must. That's actually a must, because if you have a system where just armor X is better than armor Y and you're just going to wear armor X because it's advantageous, the raids are going to look boring because everyone's going to be wearing the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. But Kingdom Puns actually corrected us here. He says, just owning the clothes boosts the stats no matter how you configure them. So then that's good then. If that's true, I'm okay. If that's okay, no, then I'm 100% fine. No issues.
Okay. Then that alleviates any concern I had there. That makes me...
And that's
good.
That's it. That sounds like it's it for gameplay.
Okay, so then maybe it's time that we mosey on into a little bit of lore discussion. I'm not sure where you would want to pick this one up. Do you want to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, we could just start from the beginning, since there were some I think there was a slight change to some of the cutscenes that we've seen from the previous beta during the dive to heart and stuff like that.
Yeah, there were some updates made. Let me actually rewind the... What's on camera here? Because yeah, I was about ready to throw us into a game of okay, who's Luxu, but we can start here instead. Okay, are you still with us, by the way? You got a little quiet. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna bring something up that's a little outside the podcast. We may be forced to take a little break, because here's a little Landy lore backstory. I fell behind on some household chores today, so instead of going grocery shopping, I'm having them delivered. I asked them to be delivered at 7 p.m., but for some reason they're doing it now. So we're going to take a grocery bag break at some point in this podcast so that my food isn't just sitting on my front porch. Anyway, dive to heart, Keycast. With that out of the way, would you like to carry the torch there?
I mean, pretty much from what we've seen, everything with the dive to heart's the same when it comes to like your character, chooses his starter character piece. He gets the Starlight Keyblade. It rusts. We hear the mysterious voice, but they're in between certain cutscenes. Like now they're giving us like a real-time discussion between two mysterious voices, like talking about, I don't remember exactly what they were talking about. I think they were talking about like the distortions. So like we get a little tease of someone being alerted, like one guy saying, "Oh, a distortion has been sighted here. Oh, okay, I'll go check it out," in between the dive to heart cutscenes. And I'm not sure who's talking. I want to believe it could be maybe Sigurd talking to someone, or one of the scientists alerting, maybe even Remis. But that was a nice new thing they added.
So let's talk about that, I guess. Not Remis, Sigurd. Where do you sit? What are the odds you think we see him? I mean, it's pretty obviously we're going to see him because Brain's here, therefore Sigurd's here. But do you think he's going to be closely involved with the Baroque Society, or do you think he's going to almost be like monitoring us? He's almost going to be like this eye in the sky kind of figure.
I think Sigurd's like one of those, because we have those society leaders, or no, the founders. They're all leaders, the founders. And each founder, I think, has their own society. I think Sigurd's like almost like, I don't want to say butler, but he's like the second in command that they go to like relay important information to the other societies.
I could see that, but I can't help but feel like he's almost a schemer. I don't know why I get this vibe from him. I guess it's because they won't let us see his face, right? So
I think so too.
Right, so inherently that makes that there's a layer of distrust. It's like, you're not showing me your face. There's only one other guy who won't show me his face, and he's a madman. Anyway, I'd like to think that's his voice in the dive to heart, because seeing as we were told he's like the narrator of the KH4 trailer, I imagine that maybe that actor alone is they're going to kind of shoo him into just narration in general. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that a little bit. but it seems like, put it this way, like, if you were chosen to narrate a numbered title trailer, let alone its debut trailer, there's big plans for you, right?
Of course.
There's big plans for you here. So I almost feel like I know I can trust Brain, right? Even if Brain did something that looked untrustworthy, I would think that he's playing, quote unquote, no pun intended, a big brain move that helps us in the long run. I can't help but just get the opposite reaction from Seeger, where I'm like, this is the guy who's going to screw me over. This is the guy, because he's not there at the end when we're bringing Xehanort to Destiny Islands, right? He's nowhere to be seen during the big move, right? We're going to take the Child of Destiny. We're going to bring him to the Destiny Islands. Seeger's nowhere to be seen, and neither is Brain,
that is true.
Which is interesting, right? Because you would think during like that's a big climactic event, freaking escaping a child out of a society and bringing them somewhere they can't be found, where time likely moves differently. And neither Sigurd nor Brain was there, which tells me something's going to happen to the two of them. Because I just can't imagine that they're not going to be... I mean, Brain read the Book of Prophecies. He knows who Xehanort is.
Well, actually, does he though? Does he know who Xehanort is? Because from what the Master of Masters said in Union Cross, the eye doesn't tell you 100% everything, only what the eye sees. This is why I don't think they don't have a specific name for certain people in the book.
Oh, that's good.
If they had specific names, because he never said you could hear what happens. It's more that you see.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
Yes. So, and in the book, our character apparently at some point at the end of Missing Link, our player character most likely read the book because that's how they learn about the Child of Destiny. It doesn't have a name. There's no name for who this is. It just says Child of Destiny, and that's why, for some reason, Destiny was Xehanort.
I guess
maybe because
go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe because he's a descendant of Ephemer, who's the first founder of Scala, that led them to believe that, or maybe there's more to it that goes on.
Well, I think part of it would be the Book of Prophecies too, right? Because you're right, all we're getting is what the eye can see, but that no-name Keyblade was watching Xehanort when Odin had it, right? Like Odin had it on the wall. Yes. Xehanort eventually inherited that Keyblade. So even if his name wasn't dropped, there's probably a lot in that Book of Prophecies about Xehanort. And maybe the reason he's the Child of Destiny, this is going into theory land. So heads up, people. This is going into theory land a little bit. But I've often wondered if Maleficent is telling the truth, that the Book of Prophecies is in the black box. That seems to be what she thinks. And maybe the black box contains the new Book of Prophecies after Sora changed fate. And the Book of Prophecies everyone was reading ended at the Keyblade graveyard, where the light fell, light expired, and darkness was victorious. And if that was the Book of Prophecies you read, Xehanort would be your Child of Destiny. He's kind of your main character. Exactly. He's the winner. He's the victor. But remember, she said, we can't find the black box because it doesn't exist. Because maybe that second Book of Prophecies didn't exist yet because Sora had to change fate. I don't know. Again, I'm sending us to the theory La La Land. That's what everyone here signed up for. But I don't know. Maybe. Missing Link, I'd like to think Missing Link will give us some answers, but this is like the Unwritten era, so maybe not.
Yeah, honestly, there's just so much that we still don't know about the Child of Destiny and all that, because back to Nomura's previous statements in the past, he said Sora was just a normal boy. He is just a normal person you can find. There's nothing supposed to be super special about him. But then you have the whole Child of Destiny in the Book of Prophecies that talks about a person who can share their heart with another to become whole again. They'll hail from the islands of destiny. They'll stop the darkness. That all falls in line with Sora. But then again, by bringing Xehanort to Destiny Islands, are you trying to force him to become the Child of Destiny? And maybe because he went down his dark path, it passed on to Sora. Just like how when Riku was chosen by the Keyblade, and he went down a dark path, it passed on to Sora. So maybe the Child of Destiny was initially Xehanort, but passed on to Sora. Everything's been passed on to Sora. It's never been like he initially was planned for all this. He's like the wild card.
Well, I love that because then it makes that final scene between the two of them so symbolic. When Xehanort passes him the Keyblade and says, "Very well done," it feels like you're saying, that passing of the torch, that passing down, and you drawing that parallel between like Xehanort going down the dark path and the Keyblade being passed on to Sora, and Riku in Kingdom Hearts 1 going down the dark path and the Kingdom Key being passed on to Sora. I never put that parallel together, but that's brilliant, dude.
I'll even take it a step further. If
Do
you look
it.
at the Kingdom Hearts 3, if you look, just like how you said Xehanort gave Sora, like passing the torch to Sora, if you go back to the very beginning of KH3, the opening, the final scene, what is Sora holding in his hand? The Xehanort piece.
Yes.
And then you see young Xehanort staring at Sora's piece and smiling.
Yeah, it was like a pass the torch. Kobe, we're doing a podcast. Anyway, yeah, so it was like a passing of the torch through and through. That's true, because, yeah, in that shot with the sunlight coming down, he's holding Xehanort's piece in his hand. As in, like, it's... Ooh, dude, that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. Keep it rolling. I'm going to close my office door, because he's going.
No, that's fine. But as of right now, I think that's, like, the only thing we got on when it comes to the Child of Destiny. Other than that, we still got to wait when Missing Link comes out and it goes further in depth with the Book of Prophecies, what it specifies, what led us to believe Xehanort was the chosen one, because there's clearly going to be some form of time skip at the end of Missing Link.
Yes.
Because that's another thing we still do not know. When does our character actually appear in Missing Link? How many months or years has it been since Brain arrived before we got there? Did we arrive the same night as Brain? Was Brain there for at least a year and then we arrived? And then towards the end, there's going to be a time skip where our character is going to grow old, take Xehanort, and then go to Destiny Islands. There's so much we don't know.
Yeah, because, like you're saying, our player character is old during that scene, but there's also a complete discrepancy between what is the gap between Brain's arrival and our arrival. You know? Like you're saying, did we arrive at the same time? Did a year pass? 2 years? How has Brain's position in Scala changed since then? What is he cooking? Right?
Exactly.
Here's a great question from Madison Sanders. What if we arrived before Brain?
And that would be even more interesting.
That would be kind of nuts. I would put my money on Brain getting there first, just because we saw him in the trailer already. But that would be an interesting development. I mean, how many chapters has the beta test given us? 4, and we still haven't seen him.
Yes, we've only gotten 4 chapters. Everyone was debating that we might get chapter 5 because it was there, but they didn't give us chapter 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going along back to the story now. You know, it plays the same where, you know, Remis finds us washed up on the beach. We get the same introduction.
Ooh.
The dark side appears. I will bring this up because I made a post about this not too long ago. And I find it interesting. If you look, in the scene where Remis talks about like a whole bunch of cool stuff washes up on the beach, they zoom in on the items that wash up on the beach. You see a bike, you see a microwave, you see a VHS player, and it made me wonder, where are these things coming from? Those are things that don't seem like they're common in Scala et Kylum. And someone commented on my post, in the first beta, those items weren't in the first beta. They actually added them in for the second beta during that scene.
Huh. And this is what's so interesting too, which is why, like, I no matter how, even if you're like me and you've watched these first 4 chapters like 3 times already, don't skip it when you boot that game up for reasons like that. They could be throwing stuff in that could be huge hints towards something, but you also do raise a good point that those items don't seem very typical to the Scala et Kylum we've arrived in, which makes you wonder how many different worlds are actually bleeding into this one.
Exactly. And I think it could also be the distortions too, because if the distortions are Heartless jumping through them, maybe that's it too.
Yeah, that, and like when you think about it, like I can't really think of it's not as if the bicycle was common in Daybreak Town, right?
Yeah, as far as we know, no.
Because like with the Starlight Keyblade and Player and Brain, they all have a similar like source point. But those items that you're pointing out, right, the microwave, the bicycle, that was not typical to Daybreak Town. So there's clearly more than one world bleeding in here. And like you're saying, that could be what the distortions are about. Maybe those are just objects left over from worlds the Heartless have devoured, stuff like that. But that's interesting. And almost too, you know what I'm thinking too? What if those shores are connected to the world of darkness? You know how crazy things wash up on that shore with like Kyrie's message in a bottle? Similar kind of idea?
That could be it, yeah. That could that's what made me think. I thought that was like a similar phenomenon because the dark margin is like a special world that connects it's an in-between world that connects the realm of darkness with the realm of light. So that's how things like pass through the ocean. So it's possible that it could just be connected in that same sense, like maybe in the same parallel to what Kyrie says in her letter. There are many worlds, but they all share the same sky.
Exactly. Dude, that. And you know what's crazy about that phrase? Only one other character has said it. Do you know who that is?
Yes, Xehanort.
What's that about?
He says there is one sky, one destiny. I mean, I never really thought. Maybe it's just an old sayings that maybe he and her just picked up, or maybe it's just a nice callback. It could be anything, really.
I think there's got to be something there. I just think there does. You can't have Kyrie and Xehanort, two characters who are very strongly connected, by the way. Have them say something similar like that. I don't know.
Well,
maybe.
you know what?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, it's interesting because Xehanort. There's been so many hints and teases that Xehanort has written the book, read the Book of Prophecies in KH3, because when he talks to Iroquois at the beginning, he says the gazing eye sees everything, and then the world will be swallowed in darkness, and then Iroquois says, "What if I could change it?" How does Xehanort actually know the world's going to be swallowed in darkness, unless someone either told him or he maybe got a glimpse of the book? And then in his which is interesting, if you fight him, I don't know if it's the data battle or if it's the actual final battle. When you beat him, he says this wasn't what was written, something like that. So it's like maybe it's a story passed down that darkness will prevail, or maybe he got a glimpse of the book. We don't know.
I think he saw the book. I honestly think the master spilled all the beans. I think he spilled all the beans to Xehanort, because he doesn't just know about that stuff. He knows about unreality too. Like, what doesn't he know? At the end of the day,
that's another thing, yeah.
And then if you're talking Remind Xehanort seemed to be one step ahead of Sora. He knew everything Sora was doing. He knew why Sora was doing it. He knew how Sora would and wouldn't be successful. He knew what dictated failure and success. Like, he's just a guy he said plans for every eventuality, and he seems to just know a lot and played a lot of it close to the chest. That's why I've always theorized. I'm like, I think he knew he was the scapegoat. I think he knew where all this was going. And he looked for the easy way out. He looked for the tyrant's way out. But at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, he puts his faith in Sora. He puts his faith in a different way, a different path. And I don't know. I just don't think he was just going to settle for being the master scapegoat. I mean, knowing everything he knew, be it the whole Remind thing, knowing about Quadratum, this isn't what was written. If he read that Book of Prophecies, he knew what was coming, at least in some ways.
Exactly. In some sense, if he did get a glimpse of it, or unless the Master of Master told him, which I think still is by far one of the best scenes that we've gotten in Kingdom Hearts, is him actually interacting with the Master of Masters.
Yeah, our two villains, man. Which I know the book's still out on whether the Master will be a villain, but he's certainly an antagonist.
Yes, that's basically the term that Nomura said. Him and the Foretellers will be antagonists.
Right. Not necessarily villains, because maybe there's something, at least with the Foretellers, we know, in my opinion, there's something redeemable about all the Foretellers. The Master of Masters, we don't know yet.
Exactly.
Okay, what do you say we play a little game of Who's Luxu? Because I saw you bring this up on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
And
Um,
obviously we're jumping the gun here, obviously, but it's never too soon to start asking that question of Who's Luxu.
I mean, honestly, again, Luxu, in my opinion, this time around could be anyone. I don't think I don't think Square is gonna do the same thing they did with Dark Road, where they
No.
make it kind of obvious or give us hints who Luxu is. I think this time we're not gonna even know. He could be Freya. He could be a new female character. He could be another male character we haven't seen yet. He could even be Remis himself, because honestly, I think it would be a lot more interesting if he ended up being Remus, who turns out to be our best friend. Imagine us like not knowingly becoming best friends with Luxu.
Let me think about
And
that. Keep going, keep going.
I'll give an example of why that could actually work, because in Dream Drop Distance, remember the scene where Sora tells people his friends are his power, and then Zigbar kind of almost like looks shocked, and like he kind of gives
He's
off
not
like
happy
a
about it.
he was shocked. He looked sad, which in my opinion, I think he almost broke character, because maybe he believed in those words at once in his life. So what if our missing Link character gave him that kind of, because you gotta understand Luxu as a character. He never really was 100% for the Master of Masters plan. So maybe after hearing what the Master of Masters like intended to do, and how much he cares for others, because Luxu has shown he cares for other people.
He wanted to watch
He's
over the
like
dandelions. Oh my
yeah.
god!
So what if he's like conflicted with himself internally, and our character kind of gives him that hope again, but then something's gonna go wrong, where he just says where he's gonna go back to where he doesn't care anymore. He's just gonna go down his mellow route, continue his role, because when Sora meets him in Olympus, the way Lucius spoke to Sora in Olympus, where he says, "I don't admire one guy jumping in to save others if he's gonna doom himself."
Yep.
I feel like he's talking like from experience. He witnessed something like that. So maybe he became friends with our character, and something they did, risked their lives, and it didn't end up going as planned. And then that, Luxu just continued down his cold, long journey.
All right. All right, let's go a step further. Let's go a step further. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm smelling what you're stepping in. So, Luxu, like you're saying, the Luxu who's in Daybreak Town is very different from the Luxu in the Keyblade Graveyard in Kingdom Hearts 3. Same character, but has become jaded, scarred, wounded, both inside and out, right? Like he's got a scar on his face, he's got an eye patch on. He doesn't just, like, I bet you his heart looks the same way. Luxu's heart probably looks exactly the way his face looks. That said, let's remember, he did say that he was going to watch over the dandelions. The master said, oh, you could keep track of them if you'd like, just don't interfere. Which would give credence that he's going to end up here in Missing Link, because think about it. Brain is here, Player is here. That's 2 dandelions, as far as I'm concerned. So, this...
Yeah, that's 2 of them. Yeah, that's 2 of them.
So that gives him a reason to want to be here. And for all we know, somebody else could be lurking. For all we know, there could be another dandelion lurking. Maybe another dandelion's on the way, for all we know. We don't know. But what we do know is we've got 2 of them here, which would give Luxu reason to be lurking in Scala in the first place. So already, there's a justified reason for him to be here, and there's a justified reason for him not to reveal himself. Also, nobody knows what Luxu looks like. So even if he was showing his real self here in this Scala, no one's going to know who he is, because nobody really saw who was under the hood. Now, I want to take it back to you bringing Luxu and Sora together. I have always felt that Luxu and Sora are a mirror image of one another in some ways. Not like an exact replication, but like you were saying, Luxu used to once, it's very clear Luxu used to once believe in the things Sora believed in. And the reason why he has this sort of animosity towards Sora is because he's almost threatened by the fact Sora still believes in it. And after everything they put him through, say in Dream Drop Distance, after everything they put him through, he still held on to it. That said,
Exactly.
I have always found people compare Gula to Sora in back cover in Union Cross. I never liked that comparison. It never really sat well with me.
How would you even compare the two?
They do a similar pose, that's for one, but that's where I run out. That's where I run
I
out.
don't
Maybe
see.
someone in the
Yeah,
chat.
I don't
Someone in the
see the characters.
I agree. I couldn't agree. Someone in the chat, maybe they feel this way. They're welcome to voice themselves. I'll read their message. We can hear them out. However, I always thought Sora and Luxu in Daybreak Town are the most similar. Right? Luxu
100%.
is like, he's kind of like a novice. He doesn't really know anything. The master's always making fun of him for being naive and not knowing anything. He really cares about the dandelions, wants to watch over them. I don't know, this early Luxu, who's under the hood, he acts a lot like Sora. Kobe? Kobe! Come here. Come here. What are you doing? Keep it down, puppy. Keep it down. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, I've always thought that early Luxu, Daybreak Town Luxu, to me, actually seems quite like Sora. Like, if Sora was going to mentor under the Master of Masters, to me, I almost feel like they'd have a similar dynamic that the Master and Luxu had in the early days.
I 100% agree. Luxu's personality that we learn at the start of Union Cross in Daybreak Town is a more compassionate, understanding character who actually cares about his comrades and other Keyblade wielders. He's not who he is now. So over time, after living so long and seeing God knows what, he's changed. His personality probably became more nonchalant and less caring, almost like the Master of Masters.
Yeah, it's almost like he started to manifest the Master, or at least his persona, right? As time goes on, Luxu is turning into more and more like the Master of Masters. I almost wonder if it's an entire morphing process. That said, like, if the Master of Masters could be a future Luxu, or if Luxu is the Master putting his younger self into a vessel. Xehanort did something similar, and Xehanort and the Master is a lot of overlap. That's all I'm saying. But I feel like the two would, like, that's why I almost feel like Luxu is destined to strike Riku down, because that's how you could solidify Luxu as Sora's new rival. I don't know. But the idea, I mean, how do you feel about him maybe being Nept? Or does he seem almost too involved, right? Because the Master told him, look, don't touch, and Nept almost seems a little too hands-on to be Luxu.
I mean, I could see it, but Bragi was a little too involved too when you think about it. Luxu needed to stay close to his Keyblade. He stayed very close to it specifically because in Dark Road, the only way for him to stay close to it was to become a student for the current wielder of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always close to it, and he was able to see everything, and he was very involved. And we don't know who's the current wielder. We don't know who the current wielder of No Name is in this time period. So until we know who it is, whoever that person is and whoever allies or people they associate with, then we'll be able to narrow it down a little bit more because that person is most likely Luxu staying close to his Keyblade.
Also, do you think it's possible Luxu already betrayed the Master? Because I don't remember anything in his role. Like, no, it's funny, I've only kind of just thought of this now. I don't recall anything in his role having to do with bringing the foretellers back. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's different because in the reports he says it's like he knew it was going to happen. He says after the destined Keyblade War is reenacted, I will then be reunited with my comrades. Like something told him or he read somewhere that this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Nomura said in a past interview that Luxu did have another role that we will learn along the way.
Well, the role is that he's the traitor.
That too, yes.
Yeah. And I think I want to bring something up too, because we're kind of on the could Remis be Luxu thing. Nept says to him in I believe this is chapter 3, says, what? But I thought you loved looking after others, which we know that was Luxu's thing of wanting to look after the dandelions. And again, just like Sigurd knew exactly where Brain spawned in, Remis especially knew where the player spawned in. And I don't think that could be overlooked, right? I think you brought that up earlier too.
Yeah, that could also be him getting, notified by the scientist telling them, hey, we need someone to look at a possible distortion, and he just stumbled upon us. Or it could be, like you said, he could be Luxu just knowing that we were going to arrive there. But Remis, though, the way they're portraying Remis also makes it look like he's playing the role of Axel when he was teaching Roxas back in 358 Days.
I
Like
do.
how Nept
Big brother energy.
is like, yeah, big brother energy. Like how Nept is saying, you know what, I'm putting you in charge of looking after our new recruit, training them. And Remis is kind of like, oh, why does it have to be me? Kind of thing. So they're doing another parallel between like Roxas and Axel in a sense, where and then that's gonna make people, start to believe maybe Remis is ancestor to Lee or Axel.
Well, I always felt like there's got to be some sort of lineage for Axel, right? Because the whole got it memorized thing, it's the idea that Axel understands he understood from a very young age, if I live inside people's memories, I could live forever. Okay, that's some like Kingdom Hearts lore most of us didn't understand until our like 10th year in the series. At least if you were growing up with it like as a kid. But he seems to understand like the fabric of how this all works in a sense. Now he doesn't seem to know like from a grandiose sense that that's how everything works, but it seems like from a young age, and look, somebody taught him or he had an experience that taught him that being in people's memories is almost more important than physically being in front of them in some ways. Like it's the memory that keeps you alive, whether your body is present or not. And now everything with replicas and the arcs and all of this, it's like, man, that was some deep level knowledge, man. And for him to just spew that out before he's ever a Keyblade wielder, there's got to be some like family lineage there or something that passed that lesson on to him.
I agree. But you see, this is where I think fans are going to get very conflicted if they're going to like, this is the whole idea of bloodlines could either hurt or make the series good, because now if you're going to really make it so, like for example, that Lee is a descendant of Remis, you're kind of, me personally, I feel like you're taking away the uniqueness from a character. Because now, if you go and do a big reveal that Remis is definitely 100% Axel's ancestor, then that means Axel always had the potential to be a Keyblade wielder. It's not something he actually worked hard to. He always had it deep inside him. And another example would be Ienzo. Ienzo, we don't know a lot of his backstory. We just know he's an orphan. If he has some connection to characters that are Keyblade wielders, you see what I'm saying? Like
100%.
You're kind of, I don't want it to be like these people are special due to their lineage and bloodlines. Same thing with Sora. I want Sora to stay like the normal boy kind of thing.
That's where I was going to interject. I think the best way to actually do this, right? And it's going to disagree with you a little bit, but I'm definitely agreeing when it comes to Sora. I actually think the best way to handle bloodlines in this series is have literally everyone connected to a bloodline but Sora. I think that's the best way to do it, because then you're amplifying the whole dull, ordinary boy archetype immensely, right? I see what you're saying, that, if Axel had a Keyblade wielding ancestor, it makes his desire to learn it from scratch less impactful. I can definitely get behind that. But Sora's our man at the end of the day. And if the whole idea is that he's this, again, dull, ordinary boy, you can really amplify that if you see the Keyblade is continuously choosing those who are attached to a lineage, but Sora is sort of this stand-in, that there is something that trumps that sort of heritage, that lineage, and that's one's own moral compass, and that's what maybe the Kingdom Key values that maybe other Keyblades don't, right? Because the Keyblade isn't seen as like this weapon of justice. Say like in, what's it called? In Atlantica, it's seen as this weapon of ruin, but we see there's many different kind of Keyblades, right? You can't compare No Name to the Kingdom Key. Those are two different things. So
exactly,
while maybe a lot of Keyblades and a lot of this is connected to lineage, I think the best way to do this is, if you're going to do it, because the whole dull, ordinary boy thing, okay, so now if Axel doesn't have a Keyblade wielding ancestor, now he's kind of a dull, ordinary boy. You can't have two dull, ordinary boys. No.
That is true.
Have one dull, I actually think it would be so cool if everybody was connected to a lineage but Sora. And I think the way they screw this up is if Sora is connected to some lineage. That's where I agree 100%. I think you really mess with Sora's archetype if suddenly he's like the prodigal son, Master of Masters takes off the hood, says, I am your father, or I am you, or something.
Yeah.
Anything that makes him special or chosen. I like that Sora is where he is based on merit and based on his moral compass. And I think if you make him that standout, if he's just the one guy with no connection, because imagine that drives the Master of Masters nuts, right? I could see that driving the Master nuts, where he comes from, his upbringing is it's something that has to be passed on to you, has to be a lineage, has to be a heritage. And he looks around and he sees all these Keyblade wielders and how they're connected and how they're attached to this web of wielders from Daybreak Town on. And then he just looks at Sora, the one guy that can actually stop him. And there's nothing. There's just nothing. I don't know. I think it could make such a good dynamic between the Master and Sora, right? The Master of Masters versus dull ordinary boy, or Master of Masters versus Chosen One. What do you want? Like, right? Like, which one do you want? Do you want Master of Masters versus dull ordinary boy, or do you want Master of Masters versus Prodigy? Shout out to Prodigy, the YouTube channel. We're not talking about him, but shout out to him. But you see my point?
Yeah, I see your point.
I think I've rambled on enough. Okay, we got a couple minutes till the groceries are here. It's almost grocery break time, so you're on.
All right. So let's you want to continue more with the story, like where we were talking about, like
let's
new
rein
beta?
it back
All right.
into Scala and Missing Link. We kind of fell into the Luxu rabbit hole, which happens all the time. But yeah, if we want to rein it in and bring it back to Scala Missing Link based, I think that would be a good idea.
All right. Actually, before we begin, I actually want to answer this question someone asked. Where is it? I just saw it. Where is it? Masur 10 says, how did the Keyblade choose Sora then? I've explained this to a couple people before. Any situation involving Sora is considered
Taboo.
what's the word I'm looking for? It's considered I just lost the word. Something that's unnatural. There you go. Unnatural. And when I say that, I mean in a sense, like, for example, we know how a nobody is born. A nobody is born when someone loses their heart, and their empty shell becomes themselves as a nobody. Sora, when that happens to him, it happens in such an unnatural way due to special circumstances. Due to Kyrie reforming his Heartless, so now he can coexist at the same time as his nobody. Same thing with the Keyblade. There's never been a moment where a Keyblade has had two owners at the same time fighting for control over it. Sora accidentally touched Riku's light within his heart during Destiny Islands, and he gained temporary ownership. So now the Keyblade not only belongs to Riku, it belongs to Sora. So now, then it was a fight for control. Riku took it back because it rightfully belonged to him. And then at that fated moment in Hollow Bastion, Sora proved that his heart was stronger than Riku's. Riku believed that the strength of someone's heart was weak, puny, not necessary. Darkness was the way. And the Keyblade saw that as almost like sacrilege to what the Keyblade stands for. The Keyblade stands for the strength of your heart. So Sora proved that in that moment, and that's why the Keyblade said, you know what? He gets it. I'm going to him. Sora's is my now chosen wielder. That's how the whole situation with the Kingdom Key works.
Can I ask you to now apply that same logic to when the Keyblade switched sides back to Riku and Hollow Bastion? Like, what was the trigger there, right?
The trigger there was, I would say it was initially Riku's, because it always belonged to Riku. He was the first one. He called out to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sora kind of acts, you want to say, it sounds silly, but Sora basically accidentally snatched it up. Sora had the same quality as Riku, and because of what he did by accident, he got temporary ownership. And now Riku, when he realizes it really was always his, he's like, wait a minute, this is mine. And then takes it back in that moment. But as Riku kept falling more and more into darkness, and Sora proving himself, the Keyblade said, you know what? This kid knows what the Keyblade stands for. I'm going to him.
And that's an interesting thing that I feel like, and we talked about a little bit that like the Kingdom Hearts 1 magic that they have had trouble replicating to a degree. I really want to get back to these Keyblades having some agency. There's something about that I really like, especially with the Kingdom Key. Even if that's what's got to make the Kingdom Key special, I kind of like this idea that it's the Keyblade that chooses you, not you that chooses the Keyblade. And I wish it was something they could play on a little more. And I just think it's very interesting.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it, the general with the whole Sora and Riku, the chosen Keyblade. But yeah, back to missing like the actual story now. So now we get to the part where Remis and our player are getting taken to the Baroque Society. Gonna go straight to the Baroque Society, and then they're stopped by 2 guards. 2 guards are interrogating them, questioning them about what happened at the shores of Scala. There was apparently an assault, and then Nept comes, bails them out of the situation by noticing feathers on the back of these guards' heads, and he removes them, and now it's like these guards were broken out of a trance. They don't remember why they were here, what they were doing.
Just like that, right?
So, yeah, and then we see 2 mysterious figures watching on top of a building at the Baroque Society like they were spying on them. But Nept obviously seems to have noticed them, and that's why they're like, uh-oh, looks like we got kind of caught. But it's like, it doesn't matter. We know where they are because we know where we got to keep our eye on them. And what I like about that, I like that scene because it also gave us a nice introduction to the type of character Nept is. He's a very laid-back, quote-unquote, lazy Keyblade wielder, but he's a lot more cunning and strong than he, portrays.
And with that note, we need to take a short break.
Alrighty.
The groceries have arrived 2 hours early, but we take those. So we're going to take a quick break, everybody. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back. I really want to pick your brain about Nept. I'm glad we're on him now because I definitely have a lot of thoughts about him. But everyone just hang tight. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Here's a statement, or we're welcomed into its warmth. They can be saved.
I had so many plans in store. But once Sora was an acting force, they fell apart. All my research amounted to nothing compared with that one boy's heart. So many plans in store. But once Sora was an acting force, they fell apart. All my research amounted to nothing compared with that one boy's heart.
Our most precious treasures. Even an empty puppet. The trees of the forest. And the petals on the wind. There are hearts around us everywhere we look. And it does not take superhuman powers to see them. Surely we remember as children the way our hearts made everything seem so shiny and perfect. Sora has a heart like that, uncorrupted, willing to see the good before the bad. When he sees the heart in something, it then becomes real. When a connection seems broken, he may have the power to mend it.
Sora, the rest is up to you.
The final passage reads, "On that fated land, a great war shall transpire. Darkness will prevail, and light expire. This world is full of light. It's a world comprised of many smaller worlds, all connected, stretching as far as the eye can see. One great light protects us all. All worlds share one light, one fate." I take it you're talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Yep. In ancient times, people believed that light was a gift from an unseen land. An the name of Kingdom Hearts. But Kingdom Hearts was safeguarded by its counterpart, the Keyblade. Warriors vied for that precious light, thus beginning the Keyblade War. All of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear. Sounds like your trip around the world opened your eyes, but you got a little bit more than you anticipated. You must have seen a lot of darkness. So you're saying the weak feel the need to justify their actions to maintain a sense of self. You can't let that slide. You can't let that slide. I suppose letting false light dictate the future might be a pretty lousy move. So, you can make a change. You have that power. What do you want for the world? You believe the world needs you. Sounds like you already know where you're headed. If you truly possess great power, the darkness can't control you.
All of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Why not just sit back and watch it play out?
All of this was decided.
May your heart be your guiding key. Who are you really? Some kind of fortune teller? Well, I could lie, tell you that's what I am, when I'm actually a brilliant artist, even a scholar. I could tell you that I dream of world peace, when I'm actually planning for its destruction. The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Why not just sit back and watch it play out?
All of this was decided.
May your heart be your guiding key. May your heart be your guiding key.
I just can't wait. Once we set sail, it'll be great. Don't ever forget, wherever you go, I'm always with you.
Okay, and we are back. Thank you so much for waiting, everybody. Let me take care of that. Hope we weren't gone too long, but let's pick it up where we left off. So you were talking about the scene with Nept, the black feathers. I want to talk about Nept for a minute. He came up on the last episode we did here. Let's talk about maybe the most popular theory that's going on with him. How do you feel about him being related to Aqua in some way?
I think it would fit. I mean, Nept. It sounds more like Neptune, water related. And we still don't know much about Aqua and Terra's like backstory. Like, where did Iroquois actually like find these two apprentices? Like, we don't really know much. So if they're just descendants of like older Keyblade builders from the past, that would be pretty cool. And this is like one of their ancestors.
I think it would be great because I think in Aqua's case, because Aqua's almost like always painted as this sort of like as a prodigy, right? Like, she's gifted, like she's younger than Terra, but she became a master first. She's one of the characters that I would actually love if they were connected to some heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would also maybe explain why, because that's the thing with Aqua, right? She didn't have that much training, but she was able to endure things that many other Keyblade wielders haven't before, like surviving in the realm of darkness. That's another one that could be, pretty cool to kind of explain that.
Yes, she's gone through a lot of hardship, and she still stayed strong through it all.
Now, I had a bit of a different take, because of course I always have to be a contrarian, I guess. I'm starting to wonder if this guy's related to the Master in any way. Because his temperament fits, he's in a position of authority, it'd be easy for him to stay relatively well hidden here. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I could see it. I could definitely see it, but I don't know. It's tough. I don't want the Master to be like. I feel like I don't think the Master would be jumping bodies.
Who
and
says he's jumping bodies?
There's that too. But if Luxu was around, I want to believe that Luxu and the Foretellers know what their Master looks like.
True.
Unless they follow someone that they don't even know what his face looks like, if he even has one. But I would like the Master of Masters to just be like still like this hidden character that we don't see until like way later on, like in the next saga. Like these are just all individual people with their own importance.
I will say I definitely would prefer if the Master of Masters for the most part sat this one out. I will say that because I like the idea of saving him. He already has appeared so much in a mobile game format. I kind of love the idea of like maybe only including him in the big titles now. Because, for people who are first getting into the series, to ask them to familiarize themselves with all those Union Cross cutscenes is already a lot, especially for the series' new antagonist. I think maybe just keeping him out of this one for the most part is what I would like. However, there's just the part of me that's pulling at me about Nept. Because, and again, it doesn't have to be the Master of Masters, but there's just something about him that makes me think of the Master of Masters. Like Dawn Epiphany here says, Japanese players point out how similar Nept is to Master of Masters. The voice acting in Japan is so similar. So maybe it's that? I don't know. Maybe that's what's pulling me in.
That could be it. I when he was first introduced, I just always looked at him as that, if you ever see anime, like, certain animes, there's always that one like character who's a teacher who's a goofball and very nonchalant and nice to everyone, but then when it's time to get serious, he gets serious. I feel like that's what I'm just getting from this guy. And I just think that should be his like character. He's just a Keyblade wielder from a society that's, not well known. He's the leader of the society. And he may be like, a goofball, funny guy, seem lazy, but when the time comes, he steps up and he looks after his own.
It's like, so
And he
go ahead.
definitely, I was gonna say, he definitely seems to know a lot more than, he lets on. For example, when he removes those 2 feathers from the guards, he says that's unfortunate. Like he knows what these things are. And again, he saw the 2 people standing on the rooftops, so he knows who they are. Like he knows what's going on. He's just not saying much. And in the scene where Remis introduces us to him and Remis brings up like the situation with the guards, Nept totally changes the subject immediately. Like he says, so he's like, Remis says, so leader, I can't see this new guy assaulting anyone. And then all of a sudden Nept goes, oh, wait a minute, we haven't shook hands. I haven't met you yet. Let me introduce myself. Changes the whole subject.
He is a bit sus. What I do like about him, right, is one thing I liked about his character, getting a little bit away from his identity, is the insistence on the handshake. Because that's always been like Sora's thing. But to see like another character kind of champion like that idea, I always found interesting.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that.
He's just an interesting one. Like, I think of the 3 that are introduced, this little new trio we have, he's definitely the one I've got my eye on the most.
Okay.
But what do you think of Freya? Freya is actually a conundrum to me because they keep they keep connecting her to cats and Chirithes, and I'm wondering what
Yes,
the
I
hell
saw the
that's
interview
about.
with that. I did see the interview with that, where they said like she's like kind of like what did they say? They say it's like her design is almost like cat-like Chirithy. Maybe, hey, what if there could be a reveal that maybe she's a Chirithy in human form or something like that, you know? Um, but as of right now, she doesn't seem to, play any big role that we've seen yet. She's more like, a guide for our character, like where she teaches us the astral plane, gives us our uniform, the Keyblade, kind of breaks everything down for us. But she could definitely play like a huge role where a plot twist involved with her in the future.
I think so, and I can't help but find like she has a little cat ears in her hair, but they're not like actual cat ears, but they look like them. They kind of remind me of the what would you say? The ears on Kyrie's hoodie.
Yes, like I remember her hoodie has cat ears.
Yeah, the sort of like cat Chirithy looking ears. She's I don't know, she kind of freaks me out in a weird way. I don't know why. Like she kind of like, if we go back to this scene, actually, it's on the screen. The way she like hides behind the couch when someone new walks in. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it's cute, but if I walked into a room and someone did that, I'd be like, "Are you okay? Like, is this your first time interacting?
Yeah.
It's okay if it is, just let me know." I know this prospect drove Sonny Novus insane on a stream once, but I think it's very possible she's literally just a straight up Chirithy, or she's Nept's Chirithy in specifics.
I would totally not be surprised. I could see it actually. Imagine she's a Chirithy in human form that is Nep's Chirithy, but then that would explain, like, they need to explain like why she's in human form, and is she the only surviving Chirithy, or are there others in this time period?
All right, this might be going way too hard and way too far. But what if she's the nightmare Chirithy?
That would be interesting, because technically the Nightmare Charity did say before he passed away, "I'll see you in another dream." He'll see our player in another dream. So we don't know what that means yet. So the Nightmare Charity might reappear some shape or form.
I think it's almost certain that we'll see the nightmare Chirithy again. But the idea that it's Freya might be a bit much right now. I feel like that's only the case just because we have such few characters to kind of speculate and play with right now. But she is an interesting one. I don't know. Okay, Matt Sauer has something for us. And Murrah said there's a great secret hidden in Freya, but may I tell you the secret? And then followed with, some speculate she has a connection with Ephemer, but she doesn't. Yeah, I saw right away.
White hair.
I mean, listen, if you have silver hair in this series, everyone's going to say you're a descendant of Ephemer now. But it having nothing to do with Ephemer is like, okay, then who does it have something to do with? I mean, we know Ava can shapeshift.
Yes, Ava is a shapeshifter. She's the only known shapeshifter we know.
And she's got the ears too. Her hoodie had those ears.
Yes, her hoodie did have ears. There's a lot.
I wonder.
Speaking of ties to Ephemer, because the hair, why don't we talk about those two black figures that was, watching over the Baroque Society?
See, I'm glad you said that, because I'd actually love if they're like descendants of Ephemer that like hate his legacy or something.
Well, you know what it is? I would like it if you're, because this game is also, when it comes to bloodlines, there's going to be the successors and non-successors. The successors are going to be more like, pure blood Keyblade descendants, and then the non-successors are going to just be people who just have the potential to be a Keyblade wielder who isn't related to anyone. And seeing Xehanort be related to Ephemer, and he went down a dark path, what if Ephemer's lineage were more sinister down after Ephemer's passing? What if somewhere along Ephemer's bloodline they became like a sinister society? Maybe they think they're above everyone else just because they're related to the founder of this world that they all live in.
I'd love that. Honestly, dude, I would really love that, because that would make such a good parallel to the level of hubris Xehanort had. You know, that like he was going to be the chosen one. He was going to dictate destiny. He was going to reset the world, and he'd be able to shepherd it in a way that it would, you know, I kind of love that because it'd be in my opinion, again, this would amplify Sora and the dull ordinary boy trope so much because it would like, look what this focus on family line, bloodline does. Look what this focus on heritage does. Maybe you have societies like in this Scala where being a descendant of the founder gives you a level of like hubris and elitism that creates divisiveness inside Scala and Kylo. Like let me tell you, that's the kind of stuff I would love to see them do.
Exactly. I want to see a lot more of that. I want to see like certain societies like look down upon others because of their just, upbringing, their bloodlines, their relationships to old masters. And that's another thing I'm really excited to see. We have yet to see the founders. There's more than one founder of these societies. We have not yet seen them. So I want to see them in like a big round table, having conversations, discussing like, what's the plan, what each society's doing. Maybe they're doing like one society's planning to like take over in secret, plotting schemes. Like this can go like a whole Game of Thrones type of thing.
I'll take it one step further. It could go a whole. People are gonna hate me. It could be a whole FF14 kind of thing with Heaven Sport because we got the FF14 writer on this, and it's like, yeah, that Addison. I'm telling you, that's what's coming. Addison, that's what's coming. But it's so interesting to me because Kingdom Hearts has so much been about discovering worlds, right? Discovering new worlds, going new places. But we don't get to spend a lot of time in any of these worlds. It's all very passing. It's all very fleeting. And we don't get to learn about the sort of intricacies of how these worlds work, what their societies are like, what their hierarchies are based on. We don't get to see any of that. But with this game, very uniquely, maybe you could only compare it to Union Cross before it, but this game very uniquely, we have this hub world that we're going to get to learn all about. And again, of course, you had that in Union Cross a little bit. But the immersion here of the gameplay and the 3D graphics and the it'll be really cool to see them explore a world in a way the numbered titles and previous titles have not allowed, because so much of it is about venturing out and going from world to world, where this is more about, hey, we got home base, this is HQ, we're going to go to the world, but then we're going to come back. We're going to go to that world, and then we're going to come back. That to me, that seems very new.
What are your thoughts on these? I've seen a theory go around with these two rogue figures and the whole thing with the feathers. People would say, what if they're like the ravens for Odin, like his watchers?
That I love, because Odin, we got to know. I think Odin's coming. I think Odin's probably going to show up here. I think it would be good.
The more did say, because there's a scene in Dark Road after Baldur's killed. Odin says a phrase. I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something that his master told him, and he says, "I finally see what you mean." And the more said, it will be connected to Missing Link, and it has something to do with our player. So Odin's definitely coming, a much younger Odin, but I don't think he's like in charge. I think Odin's more like still serving under whoever his current master is. So maybe they're the ones in charge.
Yeah, I wanted to pause there maybe that I don't see Odin being the one pulling their strings, just because the idea that he's going to like be the antagonist in this Scala, but then train Xehanort and Ericus in the next Scala. Not saying that they can't pull that off. That'll just be a tough one. I do like the idea that maybe, because Odin's a tough read in Dark Road, right? Like, does he care? And that's part of what makes the little chibi sprites and nothing but text dialogue tough. Is like, we don't know if Odin really cares about Xehanort and Ericus. Did he ever care? Were they just a means to an end?
I mean, he did save their lives. He saved them when they were trapped in the dark corridor.
But was it for his own means? You know what I mean? Because clearly he had stock in keeping an eye on Xehanort and Ericus. And he even knew something was going on with Xehanort. And he allowed Xehanort to choose that dark path right in front of him. I agree, yeah, he saved them, obviously, so he cares to a degree, but I'm wondering, I'm like, did he do it because he cares, or did he do it because he needs them? You know?
That could be it too. But you know, that also makes me believe that whoever gets the no-name Keyblade, they get a secret knowledge with that Keyblade that kind of like, you know, that kind of like makes them like it changes their outlook. Like, so the no name's been passed down for generation, and it seems like every passing as a tradition, they seem to know what that Keyblade is. They know it sees everything. It sees into the future. So maybe it's the same thing with Odin. When he got it, his master told him, "Listen, this is a very old and special Keyblade that sees the future about the Book of Prophecies." Because in Missing Link, the Book of Prophecies definitely has to exist because Emphamer had that copy when he became the founder. He was given it. So one of these founders, or maybe even all the founders, has this one book, and they all know what's in it. So it could be tied to that. Who knows?
Doesn't Brain give Ephemer the book, or do I have that backwards?
It was Brain. Brain gave him the book because it was always meant for Brain. No, I mean Ephemer. Brain gave him the book because it was always meant for Ephemer, including the Master Defender. Ava gave it.
Go ahead.
Ava gave them to Brain because she wanted to defy destiny in some way. But in the end, they both still ended up where they needed to go.
And that makes me wonder, like you talked about like the founders being at a round table. I'm now just imagining that it was Ephemer's Book of Prophecies just on the round table, and they're all reading it and trying to get a hold of it, wondering what they could do. I don't know. That's crazy stuff. That's. I also can't shake the feeling Ava's going to be involved in some way.
I would like to see her make an appearance. That would be cool.
Mm-hmm. And do we have any word on when we're supposed to get a follow-up on the beta test? I'll go actually check their Twitter.
Like a follow-up if there's going to be another one, or you mean like release date?
Anything. Release date, follow-up, anything like that.
I know they put out a survey for the people who played the second one to let them, give their feedbacks on their thoughts. Just for if they want to make improvements or anything they need to fix.
Yeah, and that's the last thing they put out, it seems. I'll just check their website just to be sure. Let's check this out. Yep. Yeah, the last update was basically 9 days ago, so we're basically just waiting on them. But that's okay. They can take their time. Was there any other sort of like lingering theory going on in your head?
Not really. I mean, we just got a little more in-depth look to like possible other societies, being sneaky, doing their own thing. We got a nice look at the Baroque Society, get an understanding of their members. And then the next scene was similar to the first beta where Freya explains the astral plane, how to get there, what its nature is, how the societies believe that the Heartless are coming from the astral plane because there's no one in the astral plane for them to collect hearts. So they're using distortions to get here and claim hearts for themselves. And the new scene we got is that when you get to the astral plane, Freya explains it looks similar to Scala due to something called a layering effect.
Yes, I want to talk about that.
So, and when she explains it and our character is walking through the astral plane, you see the buildings start to like glitch out, almost like they're data or projections or like illusions, which makes me believe that the astral plane is an empty space, but when whoever goes there, the area itself or certain parts of the area will take a shape of something to make someone familiar or comfortable in that space. So maybe it plays on your memories or in some way. So like if I ended up there and I have a special place in my heart, the astral plane will project that to make me feel comfortable in a sense.
Okay, hear me out. Now, I've always interpreted the Kingdom Hearts 3 finale where we use Xehanort as a portal and kind of dive. It's like we dive. I always interpreted it as diving essentially into Xehanort's heart to a degree, or into his internal world. And that's why it populated his version of Scala. What he, like when I'm hearing what you're laying out, the way this layering effect would work, it almost makes me wonder. Clearly, it makes me think of the whole Yozora fight, by the way. That's where my brain goes right away. But it also makes me wonder, is like, does that have something to do with like the fact we dove basically into Xehanort and ended up in his Scala? You know what I
Well,
mean?
you see, I feel more so that had to do with power of waking, because the power of waking lets you go to worlds that are tied to people's heart. And we've seen when Riku used the power of waking, that same portal will appear, you dive in, and you can reach worlds with that. So I think this is where I don't think it was 100% confirmed, but people are speculating that when we went inside Xehanort, it was it was not the real Scala. It was more so his memory of what Scala was like.
That's where I'm kind
illusion
of
version.
drawn. Like I like Enrique put here, they used a portal to fight Xehanort. I know that. I'm just saying this idea that you're getting at, that it almost like it's incumbent on the heart to fill in the blanks, right? Where it's like
But
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but that kind of like contradicts the whole idea of using that same power to reach the real version of that world. So like I think when they actually dove into his heart, they actually went to the real version of that world. And that, that was the Scala that currently exists, I think.
You think so? I always thought it's
I could
Scala
be wrong.
as
I could be
yeah.
wrong.
I mean, there's no
I could-
confirmation. There's no confirmation. I always saw it as like it's Scala as Xehanort remembers it, but maybe we'll get another explanation. But then again, to your credit, I was going to say to your credit, Heartless do manifest in that world, right?
And this is where I have a theory too with that. Since they're saying the Heartless are coming from the astral plane because there's no hearts available for them to get, is it possible that the astral plane could be a pre-Realm of Darkness type of thing? Because we don't know if was it ever confirmed that the Realm of Darkness existed in Union Cross's era? Because all the Heartless, well, at least the emblem ones, were projections from the future from the Book of Prophecies. They weren't real in a sense.
That is an
So,
excellent question.
so what if the astral plane could be the actual like origins of the Realm of Darkness in a sense, or some connection to it?
Okay, you know what? Maybe the astral plane is explaining what Xehanort meant when he said the nexus from which all worlds spring. Because maybe you're right. Maybe the astral plane is how the realm of darkness manifests itself. Maybe the astral plane is how unreality and Quadrata manifests itself. Maybe this is finally explaining what Xehanort meant when he said that. Hey, this is the nexus from which all worlds spring. Now, he said that, we all believed him, but we didn't know the functionality of how all the worlds sprung out from Scala ad Kylum. And, you know, some people thought maybe that's what all the cable towns were, and every, like, little cable town eventually became its own world. But now that we have this knowledge of the astral plane, it actually seems to me like that might be the more plausible outcome.
And if you notice, the Realm of Darkness and the Astral Plane seem to act similar. Back to the layering effect. It takes the form of places you are familiar with. And what would you learn about the Realm of Darkness? When a world falls to darkness, that world becomes a part of the Realm of Darkness. It adds a new location. So they do, they're kind of parallel to each other.
Yeah, and again, that would also explain Aqua in Fragmentary Passage, right? Where she's seeing some of the worlds she visited in Birth by Sleep.
Yeah, because they fell to darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, now that makes us wonder, when Sora encountered Yozora, what if Sora wasn't really in the final world? What if he was in the astral plane that took the shape of the final world because he was the first one to enter there? And because of the whole concept of him thinking he died or vanished, that's the last thing his heart, believed in, and that's why the astral plane took the form of the final world, because that's usually where, hearts go after, they die. And then when Yozora appeared, his projection of his home world took over. It overlapped over what Sora was projecting.
Do you have any idea as to what would allow Yozora's layering to trump Sora's? Is it a matter of belief?
Maybe his strong will to be there.
Okay.
Because Yozora explains it as he was forcing. He explained, the way he explains how he got there is that he was trying to get there. He said, "I went through some trials to get here, and I was told to save Sora." So he was on a mission to get to where he is. Sora just ended up there because he was banished. So it's interesting. And then you have, and it could be possible him saving Sora could be, him trying to wake Sora up, and that's how Sora wakes up in Quadratum, because Sora's been asleep for 7 days. He's like almost like in a coma. So maybe his encounter with Yozora helped wake him up, because maybe the astral plane, because of what Freya says, it's a form of mental energies. Maybe Sora's mind was locked. Maybe Sora's mind was trapped in the astral plane, and Yozora got there through sleeping, through his dreams, and he encountered Sora to go wake him up and help him in a sense.
And this makes me so curious, because we talked about the parallel of Brain spawning into Scala, Sigurd picking him up, Player spawning into Scala, Remis picking them up, and now Sora spawning into Quadratum, and it likely being Strelitzia that picks him up. Is there a connection there? Is this all connected to like maybe one of the societies that has this knowledge of when everyone's going to spawn in, and they send somebody out to collect? Like, because that seems seems like a bit of an overlap there. I don't know.
It could be. I mean, in Brain's case, Sigurd said they knew he was going to arrive thanks to the Book of Prophecies. So they obviously read the book that he would eventually arrive at this time. They said, because he says you were fated to arrive here. So it definitely could be. I'm really curious to see more as we learn more and more of what the astral plane really is, because Freya even says we don't know 100% what this place is. We only know that the Heartless are coming out of this place and invading us. We know it's made of mental energies, and we know there's no one living in this special space, and the character pieces which they mention come from this place, in which they're like powers from the future or different time periods that you can harness to your own will. So there's going to be a lot of in-depth when it comes to the astral plane.
Yeah,
and
good.
we learned about the Disney World, so there will be us going to Disney Worlds. But now my question is, how is that going to be? Are we actually going to like Disney Worlds, or are we going to like the astral plane and it's going to take the form of a Disney World?
That one. I believe it's the latter. Because I think that puts it in line with this puts it in line with the with Kyrie's grandmother's retelling how the world was rebuilt with the the memories of children, with the light of children's hearts, rather, something like that. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But the fact that all these worlds are coming from like memory, right? It almost seems like this is how they're gonna rebuild, or this is how they're gonna respawn, or something like that.
Yeah. There's just so much. And this is why I love the lore of Kingdom Hearts. Whenever we get new lore, I just get super excited and start to like really, really delve deep into like all the new information, because it's just really interesting to see what they come up with. We got the astral plane, we got now the societies, we got mysterious society members that can hypnotize people through special items. Like, there's just so much.
And I think the astral plane is probably the most exciting aspect of the lore so far, just because it has the ability to explain questions we still have from the Darkseeker saga. And I think that's what makes the astral plane so cool, right? Is like we know even less than the Baroque Society does. Yet we're all out here already connecting it to the Yuzora encounter, wondering how else it connects. It's that kind of stuff that I really look forward to.
I was gonna say, why don't we talk about how like this era is also the Unwritten era, and how maybe the Master's Eye couldn't see it. Like, what are your thoughts? Who do you think the person in the black hood is, like in the organization coat, who's currently wielding No Name in this era? Do you think that's Luxu, or do you think that's just somebody else?
I'm gonna go with Luxu. I think Luxu cut that deal with Brain because the Master doesn't want him around. Like, okay, I'm going a little off topic there. Let me rein that in. I think it's Luxu. Because Brain, I know some people think it might be Brain, but Brain already showed up hoodless. He appears in the trailer hoodless. I think it's Luxu because I'm of the belief that Luxu has already betrayed the Master very early on. Doesn't mean he's on Team Ava, doesn't mean he's on Team Sora, but I do believe that Luxu has had his own agenda since that meeting with Brain. And I think he's there because, like you said, this is the Unwritten era, so the Master probably doesn't know about it. Which is why I think, personally, this is where Quadratum's going to be created, because the Master didn't know about Quadratum, right? It wasn't written. Therefore, I feel like it's probably created during this Unwritten era, because it's not something you can learn from reading a book of prophecies. That said, as far as... what was I going to say? Masters... Luxu. If Luxu truly did betray the Master, then this Scala ad Kylum is like a dream world to him. A place where the Master's eye's finally off him. Like, you know what I mean? What better place for Luxu than to be somewhere where the Master can't watch him for once? Especially if he intends to betray the Master, or it's his role to be the traitor. So, I think that hooded figure is Luxu. If it's not Luxu, I don't know who else it could be. Because Sigurd, we already know Sigurd has a get-up in this Scala. So... I think it's Luxu. Yeah. I think he's here simply because it is the Unwritten era, so he's looking for every edge on the Master of Masters that he can.
My only issue with it being Luxu is because Luxu's role was to pass down the Keyblade, and he says he did pass it down in the KH3 report, so how would he end up getting it again unless he decided to be the apprentice?
Well, he has to pass it to Odin, right? That could be what he's referencing, and it still hasn't made its way to him. I think...
He said...
Go ahead.
He said he specified he passed it down to one of the Union leaders, which is Brain, as we see. So, how does...
He's a liar.
How would Luxu... I mean, you know what it is? It's possible he could lie, but then again, why would he lie in a report, though? Like, you know, the reports never...
True,
I mean,
true.
The only time the reports in Kingdom Hearts has ever, I would say, lie... is when we figured out that the Ansem reports in KH1 were actually written by Terra Xehanort. That was the only time reports technically lied. It wasn't written by Ansem the Wise, it was written by Terra Xehanort, until the ones in KH2, which were actually written by Ansem the Wise. So I don't know if I could see Luxu actually lying about what he
I think you're right.
experienced.
I think you're right. I don't think he wrote a lie. As for passing it down to one of the Union leaders... I mean, again, we saw him give it to Brain. We saw Brain holding it. But then Brain comes back to... Not back to Scala, but Brain spawns into Scala, no name in hand. So, where did it go from there? Perhaps Luxu has found a way where it's almost like a revolving door, where he passes it down, gets it back, passes it down, gets it back, passes it down. Like, maybe it's a revolving door, like he's an intermediary between it being passed down. And for all we know, I mean, it has to get... Put it this way. He gives it to Brain, and somehow there's a gap between Brain having it and Odin having it. Right? That's the gap that we can't fill, is what is the gap between Brain and Odin? Brain arrives to Scala, no name is no longer in hand. Where did it go in between? I'm not saying Luxu is the best answer, but right now, with the cast of characters we have, I think he's the only answer that makes sense. that he's, again, this intermediary in between wielders. And maybe that's how he can control, right? Because he can only control who he passes it down to. He can't control who Brain passes it to. He can't control who Odin passes it to. So maybe he has to find a way to insert himself in between every wielder. I don't know. Because I'm with you. I don't think he lied. I don't think he lied. I don't think I don't think they would do that. But maybe he's this intermediary.
I was actually going to combat that theory of him getting in between and holding on to the, being it passed down to him and then he passes it on to someone else. I don't think that's a case because in Cage 3's epilogue, he says it's finally back where it belongs, making it seem like he hasn't held it in ages. So,
well, think about it. If he gives it up, and missing Link, it would technically be ages, right? Because it would go from Odin to Xehanort back to him. It would feel it's well over 100 years. So, or at least close to 100 years.
But then he still would have given it. He still said he gave it to a union leader, which would most likely be Brain.
You're right. It can't just go.
That's why the biggest theory people have with the whole situation with Brain and Luxu, and I think this is probably one of the biggest answers we got. People believe that Luxu stole Brain's body and took out Brain's heart, put it in the Ark, and then had the medium and memories for Brain. So when Brain ended up in Scala, he got his body recompleted. Because when you take the Ark, it basically disintegrates your body and you become literally just a heart and you're time traveling. And you need two things at your destination to reform. So when Luxu says I passed the Keyblade down to one of the Union leaders, I think it's like a little trick. He did and he didn't at the same time. He stole the body of one, and him currently wielding No Name technically counts at passing it down to someone else, unless he did in fact give it to Brain and Brain just hasn't summoned it yet.
That I guess that's a possibility too, right? Is that Brain might be able to summon it. I don't know. It's a bit of a conundrum, but I'm open.
Yeah, because what actually happens? What do you think happens when someone gets possessed? Like, we've seen Xehanort possess Terra, but then Terra's heart still resided in the body. What if Luxu, when he takes over someone's body, the person he takes over, their heart is still in him in a sense?
Yeah, that's why I almost wonder if the Luxu we're looking at today is actually like a concoction of so many different hearts, and that's why he's changed so much in some ways. Because I have thought about that. It's like, okay, so Braig was a person before Luxu, right, got in there. Let's put it that way, I guess, for lack of a better term. But like, it's not like he made the Braig body in a lab and then just hopped the body. It's like, no, Braig was probably a person whose body he took. But like you're saying, we saw it with Xehanort and Terra, that person's heart was still in there. Now, Braig was probably a normal dude. For all we knew, he sells insurance on weekends. So maybe his heart isn't as strong as Terra's. Maybe he doesn't have that kind of resilience that a Keyblade wielder would have. He could have just been a normal guy. And maybe that's who Luxu preys on. But I don't know. That's a very interesting point. I don't have a straight answer for you.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like Luxu taking over these poor people's bodies, and now are they trapped in the body while he's in control due to his heart being stronger, or does when he take over that they just vanish completely? We don't know. I really hope they delve more into that, like the whole body hopping situation.
Well, it's like you said, Terra was always in there, right? It's not like he just disappeared. Riku was still in there, right? It's not like he disappeared when Ansem possessed him. It's an interesting question, but yeah, I think they're still around. I don't think it's like they temporarily die or something.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's just the whole interesting thing I thought about Luxu and his whole body hopping conundrum. But yeah, it could be anybody under that hood. It doesn't necessarily have to be Luxu. Just because he's wearing the black coat, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be Luxu.
Of course. I just can't fathom who it might be, like who got their hands on No Name, right? Because that's post-Brain. So who got it? Who got it in between? You know what? What if that's Odin? What if that's a young Odin?
That could be it. It could be a younger Odin who got it early, after becoming a master. That definitely could be it. It could be Odin.
That'd be wild. I don't know if the
Now- and
timeline
then
or
al-
the ages add up, but like it could be. That could be a good approach.
And we still don't know who has the Master Defender in this era. The
Nope.
Master Defender is most likely still around, and obviously I would assume Enframer passed it down to someone throughout the generations, and it just kept getting passed down. So wait until we meet who's currently wielding the Master Defender. That would be cool too.
I, for some reason, think Ava is here, and I think it'd be great if she had it.
That would be cool too, Ava. But then would that mean she body hopped too then? Because like how would she age? She'd have to age the same way.
It depends.
to-
Ava just like I feel like whatever they did with I don't know. We don't know. So much of Ava's story is a mystery. She could have gone to a world where time moves much faster and then hopped back over or something. Like I don't know. Ava's still such a mystery. That's one of the things I hope to get from Missing Link. I want to know more about Ava. I'm dying over here.
Yeah, and I still want to know more about the foretellers too, because when the more like even in Dark Road, no one knew what actually happened to the foretellers at the end of the Keyblade War.
Mhm.
Odin said it was been told that they vanished without a trace. When they come back, when Luxu brings them back, they said Ira says, "Did you summon us back?" Does that mean they were somewhere trapped, or did they die? Did you summon us back like you revived us? Did you? It's weird. We don't know what happened, the outcome of them.
Yeah, and again, it's not like Luxu was directed to do that. That seemed to be something he actually did of his own agency. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark, so I do want to ask, Astral Plane in mind, was there anything else from the theory or lore that was revealed that you wanted to discuss today?
Other than that, I think we pretty much touched upon all the like new lore details when it came to layering effect, the new society, Nept, Freya. I guess I'm trying to think. What else could we? The two guys that were spying on the Baroque society. Do you think they will like what are your thoughts on them? Like who do you think they are exactly? Do you think they're from another society? Do you think they could be
I love
um
that they're descendants of Ephemer who are elitist.
okay, so you think that's exactly okay. I was thinking along the lines of that too.
Or take it that they want to torch his legacy. It could be the opposite, right? They could be jealous, malevolent, I don't know, resentful that they have that legacy. So, I don't know. I like the idea they're connected to Ephemer. Not that again, I make fun of people like myself who you see a silver hair character, now they're related to Ephemer. I would kind of like if the villains were Ephemer's descendants. If something happened, right? Because then it's consistent with Xehanort. Because again, oh God, imagine the story ends. Okay, imagine the story ends with player betraying the Baroque society and taking the side of these, I don't want to say Ephemer's descendants, but of this silver-haired society, right? Because where does Xehanort come from? Probably the society we see with the silver-haired characters, and maybe they're descendants of Ephemer, just like Xehanort was. I would almost kind of love this theme of Ephemer's descendants became the villains. Because it's true with Xehanort, but what if it was true? What if it was true as early as Missing Link? That just something happened along, right? Like something happened along the way that went wrong. Something went wrong along the way. I don't know.
I could already see that happening because like when Enframer and Brain and Laurium and them, when they became new Union leaders, they worked hard to make sure something like the Keyblade War would never happen again. And the phrase, history likes to repeat itself. After Enframer created this new world of Keyblade for Keyblade wielders, and he left, generations, someone decided to make societies, separate societies, and now everyone, no, it's not like they're one group. Now that everyone's separate and they're competing for each other again.
Yep.
So is it like maybe it's like a curse where you can't have too many Keyblade wielders in one area because then that's when like competition and conflict arise. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why Keyblade wielders are so rare when we get to Xehanort's time period.
It's almost like darkness would have an agenda to like exterminate them. and like maybe lay an elaborate trap. Maybe Keyblade Wars are elaborate traps to like cleanse the world of Keyblade wielders. Something like that.
Yeah, and that would go back to what you said with Poseidon, how he says the Keyblade wielders can bring ruin, and destruction.
Yeah. Because like you said, it just kind of breeds conflict. I like that. I like that.
Here's something we didn't touch upon. Our character is still wielding that Starlight Keyblade. Even though we get a new one, our character still chooses to hold on to that rusted Starlight Keyblade. So I was thinking, since that's the case, what if there's going to be a point where maybe when we get our memories back of our past life, it'll restore itself, or maybe eventually we'll be trying to like repair it ourselves, and then we'll be able to use it again.
Or maybe part of the plot will be to like really fully restore it. And maybe it becomes... Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, because obviously they're very interested in the Keyblade. It's such an old Keyblade.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if Brain sees it, Brain's gonna know, wait, this is a Keyblade from my era.
And then in turn, that's gonna start getting players' wheels turning. Get him to start thinking. It's like, if it's from your era and I have it, what's going on here? Maybe players' memories start to come back, or maybe brains. Who knows? That'll be interesting to think. I just want to say that'll be an interesting thing to see how they handle too. So, like, is it going to be implied that player has the same appearance? So, like, if player and brain see each other, should brain go, player, it's you? Like, or that's the other thing that I'm curious to see how they play it when a character like Brain, who has a history with player, bumps into them again.
That's true too. I think it's gonna be more so like we're a totally different person, because Charity did say when we go to sleep our heart will melt into another. So I don't think it would be the exact same person. It's just a whole different person who just retains the memories.
I could see that.
But obviously our character has fractured memories. But it's cool to see in the beta, like our character, like certain words and phrases like almost jog our character's memory. Like when Remis shows us the Ephemer statue, our player gets like a slight headache. Almost like he's like, wait, that person sounds familiar to me.
Get that Cloud Strife headache.
Yes.
Those are the best kind. I mean, I love it, dude. I mean, look, the game is, I gotta be honest, I never had high hopes for Missing Link. However, the beta test has done nothing but elevate my expectations, for better or worse. Both from a story and a gameplay perspective. I don't know. It's worth getting excited about. I think the downside is, like, if this was a console game, I think people would be losing their pants over it. But I hope that over time, it being a mobile game, eventually getting ported to PC, maybe even eventually ported to consoles. But I don't know. I just think if we're looking at it simply as an entry in the series, an entry in the saga, I think there's a lot to be excited about here.
I agree. I really do hope it comes to Steam. I really do hope it can maybe come to consoles. Maybe the Switch 2 or something like that.
At least PC, at least.
At least PC. Maybe, and it could work. You could, even though I know it's one of those like GPS games, you could make it work where, like I said, the hands-free mode. You go outside, you don't have to touch the game, you build up AP, and when you have enough to not play outside and you can play from home, you go on the PC version. Like, you could do something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you think with KH4, this is something I don't know how it would work. Do you think Missing Link's story will still be going on even after KH4 comes out? Or do you think we have to wait until we finish Missing Link until KH4 comes out?
This Missing Link will continue to go on after Kingdom Hearts 4.
Okay, so it's going to be in the same kind of sense with like Union Cross was doing.
100%. I really think they've got a roadmap to make this game last as long as they can.
Okay. All right. I think that... So that means more reveals in Missing Link will tie to future titles.
Yes.
Okay.
Just like cool. Union Cross.
Cool. Yeah, that would be cool then. I'm 100% down for that. I am curious to see I was gonna say I'm real curious to see what Nomura's planning when he says there's a reason why the game uses the GPS function. And I feel like he's cooking something up again, like how he did with Cage 3, how all the Union Cross winners' names showed up in that one scene. So I think he's cooking up something with this whole GPS system.
Do you think the people who maybe walk the most distances, like the top marathon runners of the Kingdom Hearts community, will get their name in Kingdom Hearts 4? Is that where this is headed?
Maybe because like the way it worked in Union Cross, it was more so like they had like certain missions, like whoever racked up the most luck, a certain amount of lucks, like you had to fill out all the criterias to have your name potentially be chosen for Cage 3. So they might do something like that, and I think what they could do, which would be funny, if they do something like that before Cage 4 comes out, can you imagine when we go to Scala and we could talk to random NPCs and they just have the name of our characters from Missing Link above their head?
Dude. That would be awesome. I would love that. I hope they do something like that again. I thought it's one of the best moments of Kingdom Hearts 3. I think it's one of the best moments the whole series has to offer. And I think doing it again via Missing Link would actually be a really, really cool thing for them to do. However the means of doing it are. Yes, Aaliyah, the names you saw in Kingdom Hearts 3, those were real players in Union Cross. That was the light of the past. Enshrined in KH lore forever.
I'm just picturing like us in Cage 4 exploring Scala, and we talk to a random NPC and it goes like, "Hi, my name's Landy Lodge and I'm from this location. I moved here not too long ago because I heard this was like the best city to be in." Like just funny things like that, just to have Easter eggs of all the winners' names.
That's cool. I would like that. They're like little Animal Crossing villagers. They got their like pre-built dialogue. I could vibe with that. Oh my lord. All right. We're coming up on 2 hours and 6 minutes. My stomach is begging me to go eat. So we are going to wrap it up here, but I will leave you with the final word. I almost said final world. That's funny. I will leave you with imagine I left you with the final world. I literally like killed you and then like, okay, see you, dude. Anyway.
It's like, hello, I don't have a Keyblade. How do I survive here?
Yeah. So I want to leave you with the final word in case there's anything we haven't discussed yet, and maybe just give, your final take on Missing Link, and I'm sure you'll be in here to discuss it again as we get some more updates.
Of course. Overall, I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for all the juicy new lore we're gonna get. The game looks fun. I gotta buy myself that there's that I forgot what it's called, the PlayStation like thing you could hook your phone up to. I gotta get that as soon as possible so I can be prepared to play the game, hook it up to my TV.
It's got controller support.
Yes.
I
just can't remember the name of the device everyone's buying. It was like a grip or something. But I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna be playing this game, and I'm gonna be excited. I hope it just lives up to the hype. I hope it plays well. I enjoy it, and it can keep me going until Cage 4 comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this game will make the wait for it a lot easier. I think, honestly, the thing this game has going for it is the social aspect, right? Kingdom Hearts is a game, and this is where I'll leave the episode. Kingdom Hearts is a game that values bonds and friendships and making connections. But the experience of playing Kingdom Hearts hasn't ever really done that, aside from those of us who go online, we seek out a community, we seek out a chat, right? There's always that aspect. But the actual act of booting up Kingdom Hearts and playing, you're not making any bonds. You're not making any friendships. You're not making any connections. I actually think what Missing Link has going for it is you can take that overarching thematic of the Kingdom Hearts series, and now it can become part of the experience. You're going to play Missing Link with your friends. You're going to make memories with your friends. You're going to forge bonds, things like that. That, to me, I think is the most gameplay aside, lore aside, I actually think that's the most exciting thing about Missing Link. But, yeah, I guess we can leave it there. Dude, Keycast, man, thank you so much for doing this, as always. I mean, I thoroughly thoroughly really enjoy every single episode I do with you.
I appreciate that.
Dude, you got a great mind for it. You've got the lore on command. And dude, you're a good theory crafter. A lot of the stuff you come up with, it's exciting, it's plausible. I like it.
I appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure to be upon your podcast. I love every episode. I love even watching other episodes that you do. It's great. What you're doing is great.
Well, it's great, honestly, in large part to guests like yourself who step in here and you bring your love of the series, your knowledge of the series, and the chat. I always am going to give it up to the chat because they're awesome. They forge and form a lot of the vibes we have in here. So, a lot of love to the chat. A lot of love to you, dude. This is always great. We're going to raid over on Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, please stick around. We're going to go over who are we bothering. Let's go bother the Cynic. He's playing some Pokemon Unite. We're going to wrap it up there, everybody. Got a lot of stuff on the way. As you can tell, the backdrop is changing. There's a reason for that exciting announcement on the way. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I may or may not stream tonight. I'm not promising anything. But if I do, I'll see you there. Good night, everybody. See you on the next one. Keycast, thank you again.